Hello, hello, welcome to Mindset to Results. And today our guest is Lindsey Butterfield. She is burnout overachiever from corporate America who decided to leave her so promising career and follow her passion. Hi, Lindsay.
Hi, Elena. How are you?
I'm great and I'm so excited to see you today. Last time we had such an amazing conversation, so I was waiting for this episode to discuss more with you. So tell us please about you and how you found that passion and how you be so brave to quit your job.
I know. It's kind of crazy to think back, but it was the end of 2017, and I had this pretty intense spiritual awakening that changed my life, forced me to look at life completely different, and was the catalyst for huge, basically a complete shift in where I thought my life was going to go. But it took me several years being that burned out overachiever in corporate America. I was working for a consulting firm to finally realize that it was time to go off. I was struggling with health issues, mental health, physical health, and I had been connected with intuitive gifts with my guides since I was a kid, but because when I was a kid, I was terrified of them. I didn't know what was happening. Nobody teaches you how to navigate your gifts or intuition or anything outside of, what you experience in a normal, quote unquote, normal world. I shut that part of myself off. And that's what started to come back online when I had this spiritual awakening. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know how to understand my gifts. I had no idea what was going on. And so I spent the next several years working privately with mentors and coaches, but people who understood that world, because I wanted to choose to really understand myself in a more empowered way. And boy, did I have to go through a lot of inner work and inner healing to really understand that side of myself. And it was through a lot of, personal development, inner healing, inner work, shadow work, all of those fun things that eventually led me to, like I said, leave my corporate job and start a practice, holistic practice that focuses on the subconscious mind and intuition. It kind of blends the two together a bit in different ways. And Elena, you and I really, for lack of better words, went at a deep dive rabbit hole in the subconscious and energetics. And that's what I am so passionate about. And I also, and so part of my practice is doing healing through regression hypnosis. And so, yeah, so that's kind of where I am today. I work in the space of intuition, intuitive development, and the subconscious mind.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing. It is amazing that you could find yourself and how it started, how you found yourself, and how you decided to go for it. Because I think many people can relate to that, that maybe they have a good job, maybe they are paid well and they have a good career and they can see themselves there, but on the other side they feel that it is not what they meant to be, right? And when this happens, when people feel really that they are not well mentally because they do many things, and as you were overperformer, overachiever, and if it is not aligned with your true mission in life, right? If it is not aligned with who you are, they deep inside at that spiritual level, this doesn't bring that happiness, right? Like people can have very good position, they can have a good salary, and they can get respect, and from outside if we look at them we can think that, oh, they're doing such a great job, right? Like they should be happy, but inside they don't feel that, and that is how they burn out, right? Because they feel that something doesn't match at that
Right,
level, right? So
right.
to you how you made the decision and how you found that really what is there for you and who you want to become and who you want to be and what you want to do in your life that gave
Yeah.
you that power and you made decision to quit.
Yeah, and it's funny because we're so programmed that we get a job, we go to school, we stay in a career, or we stay in a career and you should be happy for what you have and all those things, but every part of you inside feels like it's wrong. But a lot of us, we dismiss it, we push it to the side, and we're like, but this is what's safe, and this is what I know is going to get me the income, so I won't feel like I can't pay my bills. We have a lot of fears around money, around doing things outside of the norm. We've been conditioned to think, act, and be a certain way. And when that internal wisdom or that internal guidance system keeps pushing at you to say, like, this isn't in alignment, this isn't where you're supposed to go, it can be really confusing. And it was like that for me, because I remember for several years I'd had this idea that, like, I knew my own business, I knew doing something with my gifts was going to be where I was, where I was being led, but I couldn't quite figure out how that was going to happen. So I stayed in my job. So I stayed in my roles and I did what I was supposed to do, always constantly knowing that it never felt aligned. And one of the things that happens is, as you start to go down a path that is further and further out of alignment from where you were supposed to be, the universe will eventually, like, give you a big wake up call. And that happened to me in the summer of 2022, where I remember I was in Costa Rica, and it was kind of like a solo trip I did to really get clear on, like, what's next. I did a lot of journaling, meditating, and I felt it. And I finally felt like this was the right time. But I had some smaller goals at my job that I really wanted to work through before I officially left. And I was like, okay, good. I know this is the right time. And I'll leave. I feel more empowered now. I feel like I'm in the driver's seat because I know now is the right time. But I'm going to wait a little bit longer. And I remember I had gotten back from about 3 weeks. At the time I was living in Houston, and I went to Houston to New York. I was traveling to New York all the time. I was there 2 to 3 weeks or more a month. And I'd gone from Houston to New York, back to New York to Houston, then to the West Coast, then West Coast back to New York, then New York back to Houston. And 3 days later I got COVID. I am somebody who never gets sick outside of maybe like the sniffles or something. I was so confused when I woke up one morning. I didn't understand what was going on because I'm somebody who, is blessed to really not ever be sick, and I couldn't understand what was going on. And I finally realized I had COVID, and I remember I took off one day from work because I couldn't move my head. It was in so much pain. I went to work the next day, proceeded to tell my boss to give me more responsibility. I can take on more, work the rest of the week, sit down on Saturday, and I just hear this message loud and clear. And it's like, you are done, no more. And that was, so I wanna say, like, I had this gray it was basically my guides being like, "What more can we throw in front of you for you to stop and for you to leave, because this isn't an alignment for you." So on Monday, I went in and I gave my notice. The meeting that was supposed to be, like, me and my boss talking about taking on more responsibility, I went and I basically told her, "Hi, this is my notice," and she was like, "Wait, what?" So, I left, and I also wanna acknowledge the fact that a lot of people hear these stories around, well, I was making like more than six figures already, so I just transitioned right out of my job. I was so overworked and over like stressed and everything. I had no side business. There was nothing. I had to start it back up from scratch because I was so busy in my corporate job. So I want to just acknowledge those people who have left thriving careers or who are thinking about it, and they're stopping themselves because they think, well, I should already have something built up. And I'm not saying that's the way for everybody. My way is not the way for everybody, but that was the way that my guides were finally like, it's time to let it go. You need to get on your path. And so I left purely because my guides ran me into the ground and were like yelling at me, no more, you're done. And so it was a full trust fall.
Yes, yes. I think this that when you follow your guidance, this is the best what you can do, right?
Yeah,
Because if you don't follow, this is where this pain comes, because it is like coming with different situations, and we don't want to wait to something bad happen that we understand, right? But it
exactly.
usually it happens like this. It is like different signs, and we if we ignore them, then that something big can happen that really will waken up, right? So
Yes,
people who listen to us now, I would say that don't wait for that big signs just to happen that you will say yes, now I understand, because that experience can be really painful. That can be painful. It can be related
yeah,
to financial losses, it can be related with health, like something that universe really shakens you just to tell you, just wake up, wake up, maybe now you will understand that, right? So
right. And I think we struggle with it because we're so conditioned to not trust ourselves. We're so conditioned to trust everything outside of us, but not ourselves. And so that can be a huge factor in trusting when you're out of alignment is we just don't simply trust ourselves anymore. And that is part of the work. Part of that work in the subconscious, the inner work is learning how to really know and understand how to trust yourself and trust you versus anything outside of you.
yes, and you said that you did a lot of inner work, your like maybe inner child work, and also different therapies. So, what really helped you to find what your mission is? Like, find really what is your purpose and what you really want to do. What from those different steps which you took after you decided to leave your corporate career?
Yeah, I started out actually leaning into the more like woo intuitive stuff when I first got out because that's what I could do. Like I can do intuitive readings, I can channel, I can do all of those things. Um, but what I knew about myself is that in order for me to continue to connect with my higher gifts, my higher wisdom, I knew that inner work, it always starts with you, right? And so I knew that I needed to be in energetic alignment with those things. And so a great deal of my work and my consistent work is that inner child work, shadow work, and doing a lot of, and I do it through self hip. I mean, that is, it's like I do this for other people, but that's my personal work. I do self hypnosis meditations on different topics, and I go in and journal and I do neural reprogramming on myself so that I can continue to move those old patterns out of my subconscious. Because ultimately, we are magnetizing, manifesting from our subconscious belief system. And so until we start to do the work to sort of remove these older, denser programs sitting in our subconscious from our childhood or beyond, um, they just stay there. And so I was really intentional about, if I'm going to leave this sense of safety in my corporate job, I want to be really clear on the direction that I'm going. So while I was doing the intuitive work, intuitive readings, the mentorship, all of that stuff, I was on my own, like deeply invested in my inner work. And so that I could become more and more clear and trust myself more and more on the direction that I was going to go. And so that's what led me. And then over time, of course, right, it led me into being like, I'm doing this work on myself all the time. It is self hypnosis. It has been so profoundly beneficial for me that I want other people to experience it. I want other people to have the level of like, quantum leaps, the feeling like the dominoes are all falling to figure out, why I have these patterns or why I can't heal this certain aspect of in myself I so deeply desire to heal. And so now I do that as a reflection of, all of the work that I have done in this space and the great results that I've seen from it.
Yes, amazing. You did such a great job, and I'm sure that so many people need this, what you do and what you can teach. Because, as you said, we have all this conditioning coming from school when the children are told, like, stop dreaming, come back, look at your book, listen what teacher says, like, think how you want to get there, right? Like, if the child says, like, oh, I want that big dream, and parents can just tell how you will get there, Nobody got there. Just think what you can do, be reasonable, be logic, right? Like
Mhm.
all just shuts that big potential, right? And those um, high mental faculties, such imagination with children before they go to school, they use so every day, right? So much they just can play with different toys and imagine that they are princes or like queens, and they can build castles, and they imagination take their everywhere, right? They can be, but since they go to school, this becomes like cut, and then just all attention is just put to be logical, to know how to do things. And this is how people stop to dream, right? And they just put themselves in the little box, right? Built with all this programming from different those patterns, how people think, how you should think, right? How you should speak. All this society puts such a many frames, right? So it becomes like person get just in a smaller and
Yeah.
smaller container. And then it just has to live a life just looking at life from the small window, right?
Right. And it's so, it's funny, you and I didn't talk about, or maybe we talked about this, but my first 4 years out of after undergraduate degree, I was a teacher, and I saw this play out in classrooms, and I was so upset, and seeing these children. I remember one kid, we drilled these state tests over and over and over and over and over. And I remember I taught 5th grade, so that's like 10-year-olds, my first 2 years. And I remember one of the kids who was brilliant and sweet, the kindest boy. And I remember he came up to me and he basically was like, he was just crying. He just like broke down. He's like, I'm so stupid. I can't do this. I don't know why I keep failing these tests. And he wasn't stupid. Like that was the thing, is I was like, we are so lucky to have this gifted little boy with us, but he could not fit into the tiny box that
Mm-hmm.
was this, testing system, the school system, except that he was so far beyond expanded where we were at. And it was so frustrating to me to see that we've basically told kids, we start testing in America, at least where I'm from, in 3rd grade, I believe, if I remember. I've been out of the education system for a little while.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and we basically start, I mean, there are a lot of really creepy statistics that we start in 3rd grade here in America. There's an entire body of research called School to Prison Pipeline that starts in 3rd grade. But we basically start telling kids they're not good enough, and we can quantify that by making sure they see that in their testing and their grades. There's a lot
Mm-hmm.
that we do to keep kids in these really tiny, narrow boxes because we don't know how to be flexible enough to allow kids to just be kids and expand these most malleable time. And so then we grow up, like you were saying, we grow up and we can't see beyond the tiny boxes that we were educated in. We didn't have these freedoms to think more clearly. We think we have to live a life that looks a specific way, or we're not going to be safe, or we're not going to be successful, or we can't pay our bills. And so it starts at a young age, which is why the inner work is so important, because we have to start healing and releasing some of these ingrained social norms that we have now internalized in our subconscious belief system. And until we can let them go, we just keep kind of running them on repeat as we move along, and we're so not even aware. Like that's the thing, it's so hard to heal something, and this is something you and I talked about. It's so hard to heal something you're not even aware of, which is why that subconscious aspect, that hypnosis, is so beneficial, to really just start to see like time collapse, the dominoes fall so quickly.
Yes, right. And I think that that's why it is so much important to find the mentor, to find the coach who can see what you cannot see. And now it is such a great time that there are so many amazing coaches like you and mentors who found the way, right? Who found the way to heal themselves, to get them out of that box, right? And have already structured, like already proven system. We just
Mm-hmm.
I lately just come and take it. You don't need to spend so many years, don't need to do all these trials And yeah, really, I think we live now in the best time that this knowledge is open, and people just can find it. It wasn't like this many years ago, especially for my country when I grew in former Soviet Union, like now
Hmm.
Ukraine. It was totally different world. We didn't have coaches. We didn't know anything about this knowledge. So when I found it, I became so hungry for it. So I was just studying for hours and looking for more. So I think that this spiritual being in us, that it is always looking for expression and to come out and to seek the good. And people, if they just learn to listen to that inner voice, if they just learn to hear themselves, right, outside all of this noise which we receive and which is going like in our head, like that chaotic movement of all the different thoughts, or like if we can compare it with the highway, so many cars, like six lines, and cars go in different directions, different speeds. And this is how mind this mental activity is working, right? And we have to identify what really are our thoughts which we want to think from that mental activity. We just running on autopilot, and so
Hmm.
many thoughts and so many different beliefs that even are not our beliefs, they just were planted there, right? Like
Yes.
if we speak like in every country, if you say like finish the sentence, like for example, money doesn't grow and
On
people
trees.
on trees, right? And so many different like that. Like how we know them. We have different background. We have it like came from totally different environment, but this is the same patterns, right? Which
Yeah.
installed, and then people see the world and they just live through this their consciousness, like what they believe, they see the world through that prism, right, through that glasses. And that is so important to waking up. Like why I created this podcast, because I just think that when we have this knowledge, we just have to show up and just tell people, wake up and find yourself, start thinking.
Yeah. And what I love about what you're saying so much is you are describing, like, that money doesn't grow on trees. You're describing the collective consciousness. It's why, a lot of us have had these similar beliefs, and it's people like you who are creating platforms like this, and even me speaking out. Like, we're all kind of stepping up to share our voice to help elevate the collective consciousness so we do move out of these old paradigms and into something a lot more expansive, that because the old ways are not working, but the new is. And so I love what you were sharing about that, because you were basically describing everything that all of us, so many of us, are trying to do here and elevating the collective consciousness. So people, instead of saying money grows on trees, maybe they'll say money comes to me in infinite ways, like maybe that will be the collective phrase that people say in another 10 years or something, like that would be incredible.
Yes, yes, and that's why I think that everybody can make such a big change,
Mhm.
because everybody has the voice, and if you just speak, and there are so many people who are in that situation where you were or where I was, right? And I was looking for this knowledge, and sometimes it is not even easy to find it, because again, so much noise, so much different information. So I really think that it is good uh, to have access to these people like you, and who really lived that experience, who found themselves, who found the way how to heal that inner child, those replace those limiting beliefs, and become the person who you really want to become.
Mhm. Thank you. Yeah. It's definitely been a journey, and now I'm so passionate about serving and supporting others, and helping them find their truest, selves, their highest path.
Yes, so how does it feel when you compare now what you do and how do you feel? And that time when you lived and you were overperforming, burned out,
Yeah,
woman.
it's funny because I s- okay, so I left at the my corporate job at the end of 2022, and I have always had like a side kind of coaching mentorship. I was doing intuitive stuff since about 2018, and but then had to put it aside for a little while. But when I left at the end of 2022, it wasn't until May of 2024 that I finally felt like I wasn't in burnout anymore. Like that's how long it took me to unravel the burnout. And I remember talking to one of my friends who was in um he's an acupuncturist. He studied like Eastern medicine and all this stuff. And I asked him, I was like, is this normal? He goes, yeah. He was like, it takes a while. Don't expect 3 months and you're fine. He said everybody's a little different. And but that was a reflection, I think, of not just being in corporate America, but burning myself out in everything that I did because I was running on the old program that like I wasn't enough, that I could never do enough to be enough, right? And I think a lot of us live in that space. But I will tell you that from a feeling perspective, I have never felt freer, lighter, more myself. I've had this space because I don't work the same type of hours. I don't work the same type of within that same type of intensity. And I'm living my passion, which in itself creates a level of flow that you just can't get when you're, you know, pushing so hard and a place that's out of alignment for you. Um, I feel like I've had space to do more work that's created even more expansiveness, that I've probably never been more happy, more clear, more joyful about life, and the work that I do and just in everything, like it's crazy. Like sometimes I think people probably see me outside on a walk, like I'm, silly, just like laughing at my, because I'll see something, but I just feel like there's so much joy in my life now in a way that there never was before. And clarity, and just I feel like I'm finally reconnecting with my authentic self, which is hard to find when you have so many. You grow up, like you were saying, like in the little boxes, and so it's been a really beautiful journey. And I think about if I ever would go back, and I'm like, I get an absolute like hard no from my guides. They're like, absolutely not. You're not going back. I'm like,
Yeah,
okay.
I thought like Mary Marie told that when she found this knowledge, it was feeling like she came out of the cave. That before she was just sitting in the cave and knew so small, and then when she found herself and her patient, then she came to the world and she saw so much, a lot, like so much more, right? And that the world is beautiful. And this may be not just an easy way from the beginning, because people who are there still working, right, for company,
Mm-hmm.
they can see like, oh, how I will do that, it is so much risk, and what if it wouldn't happen. So I would say that if you have this question, who listen to us, that I would say that if you really find yourself, that's something that you really want to do, and you know that this is meant for you and you meant to do that, I think that the best way is to trust the universe and to trust your spirit, because the spirit knows much more than we know with our experience, because spirit which we have inside of us is we are spiritual beings. We have intellect, we live in physical body, and we have also spiritual component, right? So that spiritual component in us, it knows our higher self already. It is connected to that universal intelligence, which is much bigger than few years our experience which we have in our brain, right? Like history and our past experience. So I think that the biggest gift which you can give to yourself in this life is to find yourself. And that's why there are so many coaches, right, and mentors who can help you And this is the biggest gift, just to find who you really are, who you really want to become, what you really want to achieve, what really gives you this inspiration in life to wake up every morning, what you would like really to do, even if you are not paid for, but that
Mm-hmm.
would give you that fulfillment and joy. As you said, that now you wake up and you're joyful and you're funny all day, because it is totally different energy, right? Because when we do what we meant to do, this is how our spirit is joyful, right? This is like we tap into totally different energy. It is like we tap into different channel, and then we start thinking different, feeling different, acting different, and that's why our results and all our life changes. This is so
Yeah.
different.
Yeah, and it's like what you said, when you can tap into those higher frequency energies and stay there, your lens, your mindset, the way that you look and view life is totally different than the way you may have looked at it before when you were sort of tapped into those lower frequencies, those lower energies. And what's possible for you becomes more expanded and more open and not so narrow. And so, but it's a journey, you know. It's like I didn't come to this joy because I've always been joyful. I came to this joy because of many dark nights of the soul, of many times where I've had to look at some really hard truths, you know, like inner work and shadow work and all of these terms I'm using can be really painful because we're having to look at parts of ourselves that we don't want to look at, but it's necessary for our growth, for our evolution. And when we are able to release some of these aspects of ourselves, it's so much easier for us now to tap into those higher channels, those higher frequencies, and your mindset shifts into a completely different space. But one thing I was thinking of when I was listening to you is, you know, we think about the fear of changing our lives or the fear of leaving a job or the fear of doing something different. But I think it's important for your audience to think about this too. And this was something that, you know, I journaled one day when I was talking with my guides. And they said, in order for you to create something new, it has to be new. And I'm not really directly quoting them, but how are you going to be somebody totally different by using the old thought patterns, the old ways of being, the old actions that you've always done it? If you're trying to create something new from the old, it will never happen. So I think it's important for us to give ourselves grace to create something new, but we have to do it in a place, from a place that's not in the way that we've always done it. And getting there is part of that inner work, part of that inner healing, and releasing some of those old patterns so we can expand into something greater.
Yes, so it comes all from believing in yourself and not comparing yourself. So, because when you believe in yourself that you are unique, that you are genius, you have some strength that only unique to you, you have unique talents and gifts, and then you don't need to compare to yourself to anybody and what other people do, because you can find your own way and it will be totally different. It will be totally unique as you are, and only in this case you will create something new. And
Yeah.
again, you will be guided by that spirit. You will be guided if you just learn how to listen to your intuition and trust it. It is such a powerful gift, and unfortunately many people don't hear to it, because they just are so much in all this information from outside that they even don't ask themselves questions, and they don't have time to listen the answers.
Yeah.
And
And
it is why, yeah. Hmm.
no, and I think, you know, that's why you'll hear a lot of people talk about why a meditation practice is so important, because hearing your intuitive guidance, your inner intelligence requires you to slow down and slow the mind down, because the ego is a very busy place. It likes to keep us safe. And when we're thought spiraling, you're never going to hear your inner wisdom and your inner guidance. And so that's why I always say, like, a meditation practice helps you to tap back in to more of that inner wisdom, to be able to really hear yourself and not sort of the thought spirals that keep kind of coming in, or the fear patterns that keep coming in, to ensure that you stay safe, because we want to create something new. We don't want to just stay safe in the same place.
Yes, meditation is very important because it helps to calm down your mind and get to connected to new ideas which you would not hear. Some people say that, oh, I'm too busy, I don't have 20 minutes per day to meditate. But actually what they say that they just stubborn to do what doesn't work. Yeah, because they just busy because they do things which makes them busy instead of
Hmm.
doing things which will make them time freedom and ideas which can help them not to do many things but do maybe only one thing and get double or triple results.
Yeah. It's
So it is, yeah.
it's easy also it's easy to avoid doing any sort of deeper work if you keep yourself busy, you know?
Sometimes it needs to slow down in order to speed up. And
Mhm.
many people don't understand this. They just think that, oh, I have just to push harder. I just to have to push harder. But, and they don't understand that the problem is that they want to push harder doing something that doesn't work, that doesn't give them results, and they just think that they will have to push harder. And in many cases this is the main problem. They just should stop to do what they do and just look at this from another perception, right? Like from another view, and just think that there are other ways to do that and get those results. And this is how meditation helps, because they need to first to come down, to slow down their mind and make the space in order for new ideas to come. Because if they just don't make space and they just do the same thing, the same act the same every time, there is no space. So all these genius ideas which could help them, they just pass by because they don't
Yep.
have any entrance, because their mind is so busy. That's why it is important to just slow down and just take some time, even 20 minutes, 50 minutes a day. It still can help your nervous system, yeah, to come down and relax, which all we need. And also it will empty that space for new ideas to come that will, you can just say, oh yes, I never thought about this.
Yeah. Well, and I love what you said about slowing down to speed up. You know, if you want quantum leaps, like if you want to collapse time, it's not by pushing and going faster. The energetics of that just don't align. Like it's not, they're very different types of energetics. The forcing, the pushing is a very old paradigm way of, but that's what we've been taught, right? Like we've been taught that like if you just keep moving, if you keep pushing forward and singularly focused, you'll get where you want to be. But if you're really someone who wants to create something new and you really want to collapse time, slowing down is actually what's going to help you because you're going to hear where sort of the gaps are. You're going to see where you actually need to pivot to get there. You know, like you're going to hear your inner guidance much more clearly because like you said earlier, it's your higher wisdom, it's your higher self. It knows what you can't see. So when you try to make it I know better and that mine is, you know, my point of view is better, you're dismissing the higher wisdom that wants to come through that actually knows infinitely more than you could possibly ever know. And so slowing down, the bringing your mind into more of that theta brainwave state, allowing yourself to be intentional about how you use your meditation time is what will create a lot of those time collapsing moments because you call in that higher wisdom, but you start to see a different viewpoint of what's possible for you. But you wouldn't have been able to because you were if you were just busy and letting that freeway of cars just run through your mind.
Yes, exactly. And what I noticed also from my experience, that it is important to be in a good state, like be in that calm state, in peaceful state of your mind, and be grateful. Just yes, just waking up every morning and just get to that frequency of gratefulness and love. Send love to people, even those people who bother you, and still you send them love, because it is not even about them, but it is about you, because energy which you send out to the universe, it comes back to you amplified, right? So If we observe that our state would be always like peaceful, calmful, that serenity style, we can notice that we can do much more in this state, and we will do
Absolutely.
much more productive actions that will bring us better results, instead of being stressed and pushing harder and be angry. And that is totally different state and different energy. And this is how burnout happens, right? Because people just not aware of the state which they are. It becomes habitual to be stressed. It is becomes habitual to be uh, maybe worried. Yes. And have some doubts, fears, not acknowledging yourself what you already done, right? So people, as you said, that it is a pattern thinking that, oh, that person did that, I didn't do that, so I'm not enough, I'm not good as that. So it is just patterns and all this the way of thinking. And how many people who are ambitious and driven, they just beat themselves up every day for something that they didn't achieve, that they didn't do. And this is just becomes like habitual way of thinking. And this all affects the nervous system, affects the health, mental health, right? And that's why burnout happens. So it
Yeah.
all can be prevented if we just love ourselves, because even Jesus told that first two commandments which he gave, like the first is to love God with all your heart, and another one is to love your neighbor as you love yourself. So in order to love somebody as you love yourself, first you have to love yourself, right? Then
Right.
only you can love somebody else as you love yourself. So this is such a big wisdom in this.
Yeah. Well, and it's, if you don't love yourself by taking care of yourself, taking care of yourself, body, mind, and spirit, or body, mind, and soul, it's really hard you know, to be energetically balanced. It's hard to wake up in that calm space. It's much easier to give away your power. It's much more difficult to be embodied because you're giving away your power. And so when you're more energetically balanced and you've done that work, you can give away love so much easier. You start to realize that that is an infinite type of energy that can always come from you, because you're already deeply empowered and you're not giving away your power. You are empowered. An empowered energy, a balanced energy, is a very different person to be in the space with than somebody who is very disempowered. For me, it almost feels like uncomfortable. Like if somebody is next to me, like I'll start to move because their energy will hit mine, and I'm like, oh, okay. Like you can feel the discordance and the energy differences. Someone who
Mhm.
is, and people who are fully embodied and empowered can be very intimidating because they are such a mirror to the imbalance and maybe yourself, and they can be intimidating or uncomfortable. So being very empowered can look very different, but it also feels very different as well. And it's usually a reflection of the fact that they're not giving their power away because they are so calm, because they have done the work, they know who they are. And it's a really beautiful thing to see.
Yes, yes, exactly. And some people, it can even irritate some people because they say, "Oh, you're just so calm," like, and they just even don't understand why you're so calm, right? Because they will jump and react something new. Yes, and I also like how you said that not giving your power, right? Like, it is what I understood for me, that it happens when we take
Hmm.
responsibility for everything, that we don't blame other people, when we stop blaming like circumstances, but when we see that we are responsible for everything, and then when this comes, it means that we can change the results, right, by doing things different way. And this is how we get this power back, and this is how we become more thoughtful, right? We don't react, we just respond. We think, okay, this situation happened, so how I can look at this from different perception, and how I can do this or that, right? And this is when the power comes back. And this is very different way how really people who do their inner work, and who are mindful, and who are like I would say, growing right to the next level of conscious awareness, they're very different from the rest of the world.
Mhm. You know, and I love what you're describing because those are triggers, right? When you see somebody and you're like, "Oh my gosh, they're so obnoxious," or "Oh my gosh, I can't believe they would act that way," or "Oh, I don't like that they do this," or "Oh, I just can't stand when they," that those are different triggers. And our triggers are gifts because what that's reflecting back to us is a part of ourself that we haven't fully accepted. And so that's a gift for you to be like, I need to do work on that. What part of me has not accepted that aspect of myself? Where did that come from? How can I go deeper into that? And you'll see in different experiences later down the road when the same situation will come up and you won't react at all because you've healed that aspect of yourself. And so it's a really great opportunity to figure out, in real time, where are some of the areas that I could do some healing or some inner work around. And triggers are gifts in that way. And it's also really beautiful to see when you don't react anymore to old triggers and be like, I've done it, I've done the work, this is incredible. It's a really powerful place to be in.
Yes, because they don't have power anymore. When you recognize those triggers and those patterns, which before you were just acting unconsciously, just on autopilot, and then not knowing why that happened, right? So when we get in control, then they lose their power, and then we feel powerful. And also, I like this attitude for every situation that happens. Instead of reacting, we can see like what is good, what I can learn from this situation, right? Like this
Yes.
situation happened, okay, good. If it is not good, but what I can find good, right? Because maybe I can now understand that maybe this is not person who I want to be around, right? Or maybe this is not decision which I have to make next time. So we can always learn something from different situation, right? And move ourselves from that being that victim, right? Like on like automatically victim because of also many different patterns that put automatically people as victim. But then we can take out ourselves from that, right? And become the author of everything what happens with us. And we say like, okay, I created this situation in order to understand this, and now when I understood this, I will do different. And this is how
Mhm.
we grow, and this is how we change our environment, people we surround ourselves with, and our results.
Yeah. You know what, I like that you hit on the victim mentality, which is I think a very beginning stage of the healing process. Um where we'll say things like, I can't believe this happened to me. Why did you do this to me? Why did this happen to me, to me, to me? And that those are clear signs of I'm still in victim mentality. And a lot of the places that I see my clients start at is obviously we go straight to blaming the parents, right? And so, they'll be like, my parents, we did this. And I empathize, like, believe me, like a lot of us grew up with like not healthy family situations, and I deeply empathize with that. And as a child, you couldn't do a lot about it. You were not able to really get out of certain situations because you were a child. But now you're an adult, and just like you said, it's time to take your responsibility. So there is this there's a spectrum I see in healing and growth, and one of them is deeply wanting parents. If we're putting this in the parents lens, kids wanting adult children wanting their parents to apologize to them, to say they did this thing, to own up to blah 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 blah, whatever it is. And I tell them that, okay, they're never going to, because the only way you're going to heal yourself is you are going to heal yourself. Your parents, your friends, whatever, they will never heal you. You are the only one responsible for healing yourself. And so let's acknowledge that that happened. And now let's get to the work of healing yourself, because you are an adult and you can take radical responsibility for what's happening now in your life and how those things have manifested. And let's work on healing those. Sure, maybe they are rooted in the childhood, and the childhood stuff is usually, so if there are people listening to this being like, how do I know it's from childhood? Or beyond, even because we have stuff that because I do past life regression hypnosis, even that is connected to multiple past lives that you keep bringing into current life or this lifetime because you haven't been able to heal it in the past one. So it just kind of keeps. So, anyways, um, and what I tell them is, let's go ahead and go back and like explore where it is, where it came from, so that you can start to understand and you can start to move forward in healing, what some of these bigger patterns are. But it's not our place really to anymore to go back and blame other people, because now it's our responsibility to heal.
Yes, exactly. The growth starts from this understanding that we are now responsible for everything what happens for us, right? That happens for
Mhm.
us, and leave everything past for the past, and know that our future depends on decisions which we make today, and the thoughts we have today, what we choose to think, how we choose to feel. It is all up to us, and nobody else can affect this if we take control.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm a big fan of not a big fan. I mean, I see this just empirically in the results that I get with clients and even in myself, that sometimes there is a focus on the so much on the present that if we don't go back and look at where this pattern or this issue or this sort of thing running through this limiting belief came from, it can't fully heal and work its way out of the system. And I've had and I've seen this happen over and over again. And what happens is if we can kind of get down to the root cause of where it came from and why it's healed, it's like dominoes, it just starts to fly away. I've had a friend who's done a specific type of meditation and energetic work or whatever, and for several years I've listened to her tell me, she's like, yeah, I just couldn't figure out like why I couldn't get my energy center, my heart space to open. But I didn't know why, like I would feel these things, I couldn't figure out what was happening. And she did one session, figured out where it came from, dominoes, totally fine. Like figured out what was causing this kind of block that she couldn't quite, even though every day she was meditating 30 minutes to an hour, she was doing these certain steps, these processes, all these things. It just wasn't, and it wasn't moving. It was still stuck in her nervous system. It was still stuck in her, energy field. And it was a great sort of full circle moment, and I see it with clients all the time. And I finally, got her in, and it was just like one session, and we got to the root of the deeper meaning behind what she was feeling. So I think it's really important for us that I think our past is helpful in helping us clear limiting beliefs, because sometimes they're so deeply ingrained with us that if we can create awareness, and again, it doesn't have to be in a hypnosis session, it could be in self hypnosis, could be in your own meditation, whatever that might look like. But if you can create awareness of the pattern, awareness of the limiting belief, that will start to unravel in itself. And sometimes there is nothing people need to do. Once they create the awareness, it's just kind of all starts to unfold, because then in your everyday life, you start to see it like unfold. You start to see how it's weaving itself into your life. And then because you've created awareness, you can start to choose differently. But if you have no awareness over what it is, where it came from, why, any of that sort of stuff, it's really hard to play with the energy, to move the energy. So that's a big thing I've also learned over the, past couple of years with clients, trying to figure out how to move some of these like deeper patterns that kind of just seem to stick around, is just creating greater awareness around it.
Yes, exactly. And this comes to what we started from, right? Just to connect to yourself and study yourself and understand why you think the way you think, why you have the limiting beliefs, where they came from, and work on them. So, replace them, right? Get yourself help from coach, from mentor who already had that, to make it process clear and start just living today and see yourself in future how you want to see yourself in future, and use your imagination and be there in your future already, appreciating every moment in present.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that. That's so beautiful, Lena.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lindsay. It was an amazing conversation we had today, and I'm sure that people who listen to us, they take a lot of takeaways. So, what would be the one advice, maybe, if you would like to share with people who listen to us, that maybe something that you really think that it would be a very good takeaway from our episode?
Mostly that your inner work is what will unlock more than you could ever comprehend. And that'll be it.
Yes, inner work is the key. Yes, because outside, what we have in life is just reflection of what is going inside. So if we want to get better results, better life, achieve our dreams, achieve big goals, the first thing is to become that person, right? So to do that inner work, that healing work, and connect to your true self, understand who you really are, who you're meant to be, what is your genius, what is your power, and be brave to do that inner work, to be honest with yourself, right? And be ready to change, to do the changes which are required. So you become that person who you meant to be today, the way how you think, how you feel and act.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on. This was a great conversation.
Thank you too, and I hope to see you again in our future conversations.
Yes.